Well, hello, it's Mr. Sorensen, and today we're going to start on part 2 of our 3-part drafting project. Last time we worked on this project, we drew the top view of the box, so that's looking directly down inside the box as if you were a drone hovering over the box looking down into it. So today we want to look at the front view of the box, and on your drawing, right, this is on page 1 of your drafting project, we're going to move right down here directly below the top view that we just drew. We're now going to pick up and start working on the front view of the box. So let me zoom you in right here and we'll get started on drafting the front view of our dresser box. So what you're going to need is the same piece of paper that we worked with last time. Today we're going to do the bottom rectangle on the left, and you should see on your paper the same thing we see here on the board, the starting points. Now remember, what we need is our ruler, our eraser, our pencil, the 11 by 17 paper, and maybe some tape. I think in most cases taping the piece of paper down in front of you so you can work on it is going to work best, especially since it was rolled up. Now I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker today since we have the basic idea of how this is going to work. I will put the lines that you're supposed to draw on the chalkboard in front of you, and your job is going to be to pause the tape, get those drawn on your piece of paper. If you've missed something, you can reverse it a little bit and watch it again so you can make sure you have all the lines written down. We'll add our dimension lines, extension lines, our numbers and notes, and we will have our front view of our box. To start with, the first thing we did was we just simply took our ruler and kind of connected the dots. So let's start with that. Remember, when I draw, I always start with very light lines so that when I'm finished I can come back and erase anything I do not want. Alright, so the first part should look like that. That gives us the overall outline of our box. The thickness of the side piece on the left here is a 1/2 inch. We determined that in our last drawing. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take my ruler. Remember, on your ruler, a 1/2 inch is 8 tiny marks. 8 tiny marks equals a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to come up here at the top of my paper. I'm going to put a mark down at a 1/2 inch. I'm going to come down here to the bottom, measure over a 1/2 inch and put a line. Then I'll turn my ruler vertically and connect those two lines. There's my left side. Let's do the right. So I'll take my ruler up at the top. I'm going to measure over a 1/2 inch. That's 8 marks on my ruler. Draw a line. I'm going to come down here to the bottom. Measure over 8 marks on my ruler, or a 1/2 inch. Put a line, and then I'll turn my ruler vertically like this. And I'll connect those two dots. So now there's the left side and the right side of the box. I'm going to come back now, I'll come back and darken those in just a minute. Now what I need to think about is connecting the front, which is right here, to the left side and the right side is a piece of wood that has a rabbet in it. What would the rabbet look like from this view? So let's think about that. The front of the box is going to come to an end like that. There's the rabbet. There's the piece of wood with a notch in it. That's called a rabbet. So we're standing over here. We're looking at that from the end. We can see this line here that's this line. That's going to have to get a dashed All right, we're gonna have to make that dashed. What else would we see from this vantage point? Well, we would see that mark right there, where this piece met that piece. Anywhere things join, we would see a line. We'll see that and the outside. So what we need to do is we need to first of all draw that line. So remember from last time, what we determined was that a rabbet or a groove never go more than halfway through the board. So if this is a 1/2 inch thick side piece, 1/2 of a 1/2 is a quarter. A quarter is 4 marks on your ruler. So I'll come over here at the top, I'm going to measure over 4 marks. I'm going to come down here to the bottom, measure over 4 marks. Turn my ruler vertically. Now, is this dashed? Is it hidden? No. This is where the 2 pieces of wood met. I can see it. So I'll draw my line. Now I'm going to come back. Here's the piece that's hidden. That's the part of the notch that's hidden behind this view right here. So here's where I'm going to grab my eraser. And I'll come in and erase those lines. Now I can darken that in. This piece is finished. So there's the end piece, the side piece, with the front set in the notch there, in the rabbet. Let me come down here to this end and do the same thing. I'll take my ruler, measure over 1/2 of a 1/2, or a quarter. A 1/4 inch is 4 lines on the ruler. I'll come down here to the bottom, do the same thing. Measure over 4 marks on my ruler, a 1/4 inch. Now I'll turn my ruler vertically. Draw that line that's kind of in the middle there. Okay, so there's that. Now, here's the line. This is the notched piece. This is the part of the side, the left side that I can't see. It's notched and sitting behind the front piece right here. So here's where I'm going to grab my eraser. So now I'm going to come back and darken all this in so that I have my 2 ends completed. I can also draw the top line all the way across because now the full front of the box is done. There's one item that's left, and that is the bottom, which I can't see from the front, so that has to be done completely with hidden lines. Let's get our little detail here out of the way. Now we're ready to draw the bottom in the box. To draw the bottom in the box, we measured up a 1/4 inch. A 1/4 inch is 4 marks on my ruler. So I'm going to come down here on the right side, put a mark at a 1/4 inch. I'll come down here to the left side, put a mark at a 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to turn my ruler horizontally. And again, remember, we can't see the bottom from the front of the box, so this has to be done entirely in dashed lines. Okay, so there's my bottom line, the first one. That's not enough because a single line would mean that the bottom of the box was paper thin, and it's not. It has some depth. The bottom of the box is 1/8 of an inch thick. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a second line above that first line 1/8 of an inch up. 1/8 inch is 2 marks on your ruler. Any 2 marks on the ruler is 1/8 of an inch. So I'll do this over. I'm going to start down here to the left, measure up 1/8 of an inch, put a mark. Come down here to the right, measure up 1/8 of an inch, put a mark. I'm going to turn my ruler horizontally, and now I'm going to connect those 2 lines with a dashed line. And there it is. There's the bottom of the box sitting in there. So now that we have the bottom of the box drawn here along the bottom of our picture, the next thing we need to do is we need to complete that, we need to go back and look at the actual box and remember, how does the bottom actually get fit into and locked into the box itself? So to do that, we want to look at our actual box. Now remember, this is the front. Over here I have the side. If we take that box and flip it around and look on the inside, what we notice is we have this groove, 1/4 of an inch up, it's about 1/8 of an inch wide, and it comes down here, and then it follows along this side piece, and then it would do the same. It's going to come along the front and along this side piece. So we have our box, but in the box is a groove that's cut into each piece. So the bottom actually ends up being bigger than the overall size of the interior of the box, which means that as I draw this groove in my picture as a dashed line, when I get to the side piece, that's right here, the dash has to continue out into the side piece. So let's take a look at how we would draw that. I'm simply going to come over here and extend my bottom dashed lines halfway through, right? Remember, we never make a groove deeper than halfway, so we're going to go out about halfway or a little less. So I extend my lines out like that on the right side, and then I'll come back and do the same thing here. So here on the left side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm simply going to extend my dash line out, extend the dash line out, and cap it off. Now I can see the groove that's cut into the side piece on both ends, and then I see the groove that's on the front. They align up. In that groove is where the bottom piece is going to go. I think my box is now complete in terms of the drawing of it. Now what I need to do is add my extension and dimension lines. So remember, as I add extension and dimension lines, the extension lines do not touch the box itself. So right here is a little strip of wood. It's about 1/4 inch thick. That's the rabbet. That's part of the rabbet joint. So I'm going to put 2 extension lines up there. The same rabbet is at this end of the box, so I'll come down here and do the same thing. So I'll extend 2 lines up like that, right? And that goes from the solid line down the center, the solid line down the center and the outside edge. Now I'm going to put my dimension lines across. And remember, I leave a little blank spot in the middle to put my number. So the dimension line, remember, that arrow tip needs to touch the extension line for an A. So I'll put my arrow tips there. If you have room to put the dimension inside those 2 lines, you can do that. Otherwise, I'm going to put a little leg out here and I'll put my dimension on the outside. I'll put an extension line out from the top of the box and the bottom of the box. That allows me to show how overall tall the box is. And I'll put my dimension lines there with arrows, again, touching the extension line. I'm going to put extension lines down at the bottom of the box. Now, in the top of the box, I've shown 3 different pieces. A little piece at the end, the rabbit, then the big, long front piece, and then the little rabbit at the end of the side. Or the little piece of wood that is the side piece going sideways. Now on the bottom, I want to show the overall combined length of the box. That's the end piece or the side piece, the front, and the other side piece all put together. What is that dimension? So these 2 extension lines go from the outside of the box to the outside of the box. And I'll put my arrow tips on there. I'm also going to drop an arrow down from the bottom because this is a great view to be able to see that there's a bottom in the box and to call out what is the bottom made of, how thick is it. So I'll put an arrow here. The arrow goes from the dash lines, the bottom here down, and then I put a little leg on that so that I can ride off to the side. I want to tell as many times as possible, I want to just make sure people know that all of the wood making up the box, except for the bottom piece, is 1/2 inch. So I'll come over here. The line on the inside of the box stops at the dash line. The other line comes right off of the outside of the box. And then I'm going to put a little leg on there. Now the other dimension that I have to have here is I have to tell the person, where do you locate the bottom of the box? Where is the cut that goes around the whole thing so that the bottom fits in there? Where do I go to the saw, and what dimension do I set the saw at so I can make that cut? So we want the bottom piece located 1/4 inch up from the bottom of the box. So my first line comes right off the bottom of the box. The second line is going to come right off of the bottom of this dash line. The bottom dash line. I'll extend my other extension line off of. Okay, so that's helping me to locate the bottom groove. Now, I'll put my dimension lines on there, like that. Well, we have our front view drawn on our paper. We also have the extension lines and the dimension lines. So now let's go ahead and add all the numbers in to our drawing, and we'll be finished with drawing number 2. So the first thing we did last time on our top view, which a lot of these numbers are the same, they're just going to transfer down. The piece of wood that makes up the front of the box and the back of the box, that was 7 1/4 of an inch. Remember, 1/4 inch is 4 little marks on your ruler. Now down at the end we have our rabbit, and the rabbit is 1/4 inch deep. So that leaves 1/4 inch of material here at the end. We'll go ahead and write that in right here at the end of this arrow, and there's a little leg, and then we've got 1/4 inch here, and we have the same rabbit and the same little 1/4 inch left down here. So we'll put that down. As I mentioned before, if you can write the number in between these 2 extension lines, then you're welcome to do that. You just put your arrow, and then write the number in between. That basically means the same thing. Over here we have the depth of the box. How tall is the box? And the depth of the box is about 3 inches. Now that should be enough that you could put your cell phone, some sunglasses, and maybe your keys in there. and a few other items. So that's our overall depth, or the height of the box, from sitting on top of your dresser up to the top of the box itself. Down here we have the same overall dimension, right, of that we did on our top view. We take the the length of this piece of wood and we add the 1/4 inch rabbet and the 1/4 inch rabbet, and we end up with 7 3/4. So the overall length of the box is 7 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to do the same thing here that I did on the other views, just to remind us, every time we look at a different view, we're reminded that the thickness of the material itself is a 1/2 inch. So I have an arrow from the dash line, I have an arrow from the outside, and then right here at the tip of it, I'm going to write in 1/2 inch. Down here, what we want to do is tell the person looking at the drawing, how far up do you measure when you cut the groove that goes through all of these pieces that the bottom is going to fit in. We have to locate that cut. We have to tell the person who's going to be making these parts, how are you going to find out that where that cut goes? Well, you measure up a 1/4 inch, and then above that you're going to have a 1/8 inch groove cut in to the board. So we'll come down here and I'll put 1/4 inch right at the end of my arrow there, 1/4 inch. That really covers all the dimensions that we need here. This is a fairly simple box. The one thing that we want to add is we'll add a note about the bottom. And again, anytime we can just go back and remind them what we're going to put in as the bottom, that's going to help. This is a better view to see the bottom, just like the front view and the side view will both be a better view to see that this is a bottom piece than the top view was. So I'm going to come in, put my arrow right to these dashed lines, and then I'll put a little leg at the end of it, and then I'm going to write in 1/4 inch MDF bottom. When you go to write text on your drafting project, please note, as was mentioned before, you always want to use capital block letters. That's an industry standard so that all of us can read your writing. If you want an A on your drafting project, all of your writing has to be in capital blocks. 1/4 inch MDF, right? MDF stands for medium density fiberboard. That's a panel product, a man-made piece of wood. And in our case, that MDF has been covered with veneer, real oak veneer, or real maple veneer, or real mahogany veneer, so that it looks like a real piece of wood when in fact it's a man-made piece of wood. So 1/4 inch MDF bottom. And that'll really help make sure that whoever's building this knows that that little dash line right there is the bottom piece, and it's a 1/4 inch thick. Now, the other thing I'm going to add right to the bottom of this is I'm going to use a W and a forward slash like that. A W with a forward slash means width. And then I'm going to write oak veneer. Oak veneer. All right, well that does it. That gives us all the information, the notes, the dimensions, everything we need for the front view of our box. So now we're ready to move on to the side view.